STAR method is an important part of interviewing because it requires job candidates to prove how they solve problems. That way, they can just tell you what they think you want to hear. That way, they can't just tell you what they think you want to hear. They have to prove it with how they reacted to certain scenarios. So, let us try this. Okay. May I ask Miss Johanna, would you mind reading, please?
Okay po. A description of what the candidate did as a part of a team won't tell you what they did or what decisions they took as an individual. So be ready to probe further with follow-up questions.
So this is where your AR, diba? STAR, or the AR comes in, no? So the alternative result. Pag po kayo nakikinig sa kanilang sagot, no? Kasi tinanong nyo po sila about a scenario where they have been part of, and they answer you because they tell you their short story. Try to probe further. And you don't have to, sorry, not you don't have to, but you can, when you probe further, mas marami po kayong madodraw na information dyan. At dahil nagpo-probe po kayo, maaring mahanap nyo rin kung sila ay consistent sa kanilang stories or sa kanilang sagot. Kasi it's always easy to fabricate. So when you try to probe further and ask more questions, this gives you a bigger picture and a bigger value of how your applicant is answering and their worth and how their worth is in targeting the competencies that you want to hire them for. So here's an example of a STAR question that you could use to frame your question. Okay. May I ask, with feelings, let's ask, si Sir Mike.
Tell me about a time when you had to resolve a conflict on your team. What did you decide to do to resolve it? And why did you decide to handle it that way? What action did you take and what skills did you choose? Results? What did you achieve? How did your team benefit?
Okay. So, if makikita niyo po itong setup na to, you ask first the question, tell me about the time when you had to resolve a conflict on your team. So, mag-iisip siya. Okay? Then you can also add and prove that the T and A. No? To help them further remember about that particular scenario, you can then ask them a follow-up question. What did you decide to do to resolve it? And why did you decide to handle it that way? Then ask further, anong actions ang ginawa mo to address that problem? And what results did you actually get out of that action? Okay. This way, you see and you make your applicants also feel comfortable because it's a familiar story for them to share with you. Okay. So the STAR technique allows you to also target teamwork, some of the competencies that you might have that you want to target also. How to forecast, how to address conflict management, these competencies with the way you ask them and the way they answer, na-address yan kapag sumasagot na sila sa inyo. Okay. Any questions so far? Or do you have any questions for me? Miss Janet, you mentioned, aside from the STAR questioning technique, I also asked the applicant, what did you learn from your role responsibilities to accomplish the task? Miss Janet, would you mind sharing further? Because I also noticed also that you have been practicing the STAR technique. Can you share further how you practice this?
Usually po, Miss Faith, I really ask the applicant yung mga certain situations which they have experienced before, para to draw out really the attitude and character of the person. Kasi to be honest, I really find yung interview score sheets na ginagamit ng PhilHealth as parang hindi siya applicable sometimes for the position that we are hiring. Kasi most of the competencies, as I've mentioned already yesterday, during our first meeting, na some of the competencies are not really applicable for the position. So sometimes I really ask questions that will point to the character and attitude of the person. So by asking questions related to a situation or an event that happened previously sa applicant, I can parang draw the character of the person, which is more important. Kasi knowledge and skills can be learned naman. And what matters talaga is the attitude of the person that we are hiring. So yun lang po.
Thank you very much. And how they will handle certain scenarios, no? At some point, thank you, ma'am. At some point din kasi, we want to, at the latter part, no, it's also emotional quotient, ang EQ. We also want to see paano ba magre-react ang isang aplikante given na ganito ang pressure. Kasi madali namang sabihin hindi ako masistress. Diba? I have high tolerance. I'm a very patient person. And these are all best foot forward answers. Kasi when you ask them a question, tell me about yourself. Diba? Yung mga, when you ask them, tell me about yourself, and this is not a structured question. This is more of a getting to know you type of interview. And so they will ibebenta nila sarili nila. I am a very patient person. I have very tolerance. I have high stress tolerance. Ganyan. And of course, these are things that we can always just say for the sake of passing an interview. But tama si Ms. Janet, when you ask them how they handle certain situations, you will see how their behavior is. And by asking structured questions like this draws out how they actually are in real life. Okay? So, with that said, it's also perfectly okay to ask questions or examples from our applicants. No? In fact, this can help you test how well the candidate works under pressure and whether they demonstrated resilience. But be sure to keep a balanced and reasonable tone. Do not, minsan kasi nag-change tayo ng inflection. Parang, minsan nagre-react tayo, tapos medyo mararata lang ating applicants kapag ganyan. No? So pag medyo nagulat ka ng slight, huwag mo nang ipahalata na nagulat ka. Okay? This also gives the whole idea that we want to focus on the positive and not the negative. Good candidates may be turned off if they feel they are being interrogated, or initially if they answered something off, feeling nila they failed the interview already. So when you ask questions, try to have a more neutral tone in asking, and we will learn more about it later. Okay? So when you ask for examples, simplihan nyo lang, no? Can you give us more examples on that situation that you went through to provide you further basis on why you're evaluating her further? Okay? So in other words po, no, in summary, out of the STAR technique, kailangan po talagang pag-isipan at planuhin ang ating interviews. No? Ms. Janet, I would like to ask you, when you are hiring for a particular person, do you have already a set of questions, or do you think of questions as you go along?
I have a set of questions na po per parang position, like SG, ganito na range. I have prepared, predetermined already the questions ahead of time para ready na, hindi na ako mag-iisip ng questions during the actual interview process. But Ms. Faith, I just like to ask na lang din po, is it okay po ba to ask parang out of the box questions? Like, minsan, kasi during the interview process, sometimes when we find the applicant very engaging, parang may isip lang tayo ng question. So, minsan magugulat din sila sa question. So, parang is it okay lang ba na parang hindi siya related sa application niya, or parang something lang na magugulat siya. Parang ganun, out of the box questions po.
That is okay, just to probably break the ice or break the conversation, no? Kung medyo want to make it light, as long as this will not affect, her answer will not affect the evaluation. Pag sinabi pong out of the box questions, baka depende po kung itong out of the box question na to ay related pa rin sa role na ina-applyan niya or naisip mo lang out of the blue. Kung gusto niyo lang po siya to break the whole thing, we want to still be objective. Yun po ba, ano po ba yung sample ng out of the box questions
Ayan.
na meron kayo?
Miss
Kasi,
Janet, ito
yes.
po ba yung parang ano, if you were to be a tree, what would you be? Mga ganyan po ba?
Parang ganon, pero kasi I asked this sa isang recent interview kasi very ano nga siya, parang I found the applicant very creative or parang I don't know, I forgot na no, basta very innovative siya. So, and I was holding up parang yung PDFs niya, lahat ng mga documents niya, application form, and naka siya ng paper clip. So, I was holding the paper clip. So, naisip ko na, Miss So-and-so, I'm holding a paper clip right now, and we all know that the paper clip is used to stack or bind paper. So, isip ko, can you tell me like 5 reasons or 5 other uses of a paper clip outside other than stacking papers or binding papers? Parang gano'n. So, parang nakita ko sa expression niya na nagulat siya, but she was able to, bring back her composure. Parang gano'n.
Oh, okay. So in cases like this, would you have graded, balik ko po yung tanong ko sa inyo, Miss Janet, i-grade niyo po ba siya base sa sagot niya? Or gusto niyo lang po makita kung paano siya sasagot sa ganong klaseng tanong?
No, the latter po. I just want to find out yung how she managed herself to answer mga out-of-the-box questions lang po.
Pero yung ganyan po can still influence how you will evaluate her later on. Kasi kung paano niya na-handle yun, kunwari nag-stutter po siya, nataranta, no? It will affect later on how you will evaluate her. Kasi baka subconsciously, maski sabihin mo it should not affect, pero you still ask a question out of the blue just to see, it might still affect you one way or the other. But that's maybe sa inyo po. Kasi baka hindi naman din maapektuhan yung ibang panel, no? But baka gusto niyo lang i-test.
Yeah, but actually, natawa lang kami sa yung panel kasi may mga weird talaga din siyang mga sagot yung sa mga paper clip. So, it was para taring sort of breaking the ice. Pero
breaking the ice.
Yeah.
I guess it's a gentle reminder lang, no? If we ask these questions, I'm not sure if and this is all for the panelists, no? I know it sometimes can be parang mahabang tanungan tapos walang icebreaker at nakaka rin mag-isip, diba? And it can help one way or the other as long as we are sure that it will not affect the evaluation of the applicant. And it's not going to be the basis of us passing or failing them. And it's not part of the evaluation. So, pangbasag lang one way or the other. Or probably ask a more personal question, no? Just to break the ice. What's your favorite movie? Ganyan. Para lang pang-check lang. But it's also a nice way to throw them off and then see how they will come back with their composure. Yan. Michelle, you wanted to say something or add something?
No po. I just we have kasi a couple of questions and comments here on the chat box. And yan, yung kay Sir Ringo, ito yung tinype niya kasi. Is it okay po ba to inform the interviewee that we are interviewing them based on the competencies that are required on the position they are applying?
It is actually and should be the norm. Di po ba? Na it's always based on the competencies that we are based on the role, the competencies needed for the role that we are hiring. Kasi dapat po maintindihan po rin ng mga applicants na hindi po siya palakasan or by influence kaya sila ma-hire. It's really because of their capabilities to do the role or to do the job of the role that we're hiring them for. Kung naiintindihan po nila yan, okay, better. Kasi alam nila if they didn't make it to, didn't make it to the top 5, maiintindihan nila na baka may kulang pa sila at may kailangan pa silang i-improve sa sarili nila. Diba
Ayan.
po? Does that make sense? Did I
Sir
answer your
Ringo?
question? I think naman, Michelle, tama ba na
Ayan, yes po.
Oo.
Yes po, nag-ano na po.
Tama naman po na most of the applicants, even in other companies, no, it's really about the competencies that we should be hiring them for.
True.
Next,
Meron pa po dito
yes, ma'am.
from Sir Philbert.
Philbert.
Ayan. Given that not all of the panel members may be not on the same frame of mind, when is the best time to explain the context your question is based?
Sir Philbert, are we talking about asking the panelist why you asked that question, or did I understand your question correctly po? Kunwari, may tinanong ka, nag-star question ka. I-explain mo sa inyong panelist kung bakit yun ang tinanong mo. Tama ba? Probably when you...
More than that po.
Sige, sir. Explain further, if you may.
Yeah, there are questions that we ask, so that is intended actually to draw out from the interviewee certain questions, no, indicators of behavior or competencies that may not be understood by some of the panel, that we may have to provide the context to them na ito yung tanong natin kasi baka naman mamaya ang concern natin is that the answer may throw everyone off. Ikaw lang ang nakakaintindi doon sa sagot niya, ikaw lang din ang nakaka-interpret doon sa sagot niya na yung pala tama and something like that. So when will that be, when will be the best time? Is it in the front of the interviewee or kayo-kayo na lang?
Siguro po, this is the best time to also talk as an organization, let's say for your own offices, no? Kaya po natin i-encourage ang question bank, where you have a pool of questions already assigned for particular positions that you're hiring for. Ito pong mga question bank, ito pong questions na to na nasa question bank, ito po ay questions na pag-iisipan ng inyong organization or ng inyong division to throw to your applicants when the time comes. So ito pong questions na to, para sila yung standard questions na titingnan natin ano ba yung sagot dapat or ano ba yung ine-expect natin na sagot from our applicants to address competencies that we are targeting. So that's why preparation is important, sir. It is up to you, and we will leave it to you and your organization or your division to put together these questions ahead of time. Na napag-usapan at napag-desisyonan nyo na these are the best questions to ask. Yun po, no? That's why we have this workshop, no, to help you also put together your structured questions.